I was broke. But at that time, even like I've been next to Khabib, and like I feel like what I'm wearing is probably more expensive than this millionaire, just because he doesn't care. Like he's one of those guys that yeah, the money's nice, but I can't even imagine. I would love to see where Khabib's money has gone. Like I would very much like venture to say the smallest percent has actually been spent on Khabib, and all that money's just gone to like help other people and gone other places. You just can't convince me that most of Khabib's money has been spent on Khabib Nurmagomedov. He's just not that kind of guy.
What's up, everybody? Today we got a special guest. We got Tyler Minton. He's one of the top nutritionists of the combat sports world. He works with a lot of MMA fighters from all kinds of different organizations like UFC, Bellator, LFA, etc. And he's worked with names like Daniel Cormier, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Max Holloway, and he even extends his work to the general population, which is super generous of him. So this dude's everywhere. So Tyler, Happy New Year's, and how have you been living, man?
Oh man, I appreciate it. It's been great. It's been a year that has been challenging, and I've been fortunate enough to say it's been the best year of my life. I recognize that it's not been for a lot of people, so I hope that they can turn around and this time next year say that 2021 was.
Yeah, definitely. And you're saying that because you got a new house, a new kid. Man, life's gotten crazy, hasn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, we were talking the other day, me and my girl. If everything else bad happened, it doesn't matter. Just we had a baby, so that kind of outweighs everything. But even just beyond that, I mean, it's been the best year for my business. My business on the books and everything, it's had the best year it's ever had. And ironically, a large part of that is because of COVID. People just really started to understand how important it is to take their health seriously. So after the initial hit, when people realized that, it is rough, but it's not the end of the world, people were comfortable spending their money to improve their health. So that was really good. And then, it's just been, I don't know. I think a lot of it is I made the effort more than I've ever made the effort to see the positive in everything throughout the year. So I honestly think just making that a conscious effort to find the positive in every situation. I personally got COVID a while back, and it was rough on me. I'm one of the healthiest people I know, and it wore me out. It was really bad, but even that, I was set to go work in person with Stephen Thompson. And then I couldn't, because I had that, so I didn't want to get on a plane and risk giving that to the people on the plane and risk giving it to him. And I was even sitting there trying to find a positive in that. I still worked with him remotely, but Steven's, one of my favorite people in the world. So I was real bummed about the fact that I wasn't going to be there in person. And then, I was trying to find a positive in that situation. And I told myself, like, well, at least if I was going to get it, at least I had symptoms. Because if I didn't have symptoms, if I was one of these asymptomatic people, I would have had no reason to go get tested. I would have gotten on an airplane. I would have taken 2 different airplanes to Las Vegas, given it to anyone on the airplane, then possibly gone to Vegas and given it to Stephen Thompson. So my outlook on that was, it sucks that I got it, but I'm grateful that I had some really bad symptoms, because even if I would have just had like a mild headache or something, that's not enough to make me think I have coronavirus. I get headaches all the time. So again, just trying to find a positive in every situation this year has been a huge help.
Yeah, I respect that mindset because you know what they say in 2020, if you couldn't find the hustle's not in you, right?
That's the
And
truth.
yeah, exactly. So if anything, I mean, this year was the year to try to think positively. You're sitting by yourself at home, like away from school, work, whatever, and it's like eats at your mind. But I mean, hey, another positive is Stephen Thompson won. We,
Yeah.
I'm sure you played a part in that. Like the dude is he's a stud. And
Yeah, it was. And we had a great weight cut. He said, ironically, it was still the best weight cut he's ever had, just because, the system was still there. I like to be there to help, but he's got his dad there with him, we're on the phone constantly, and his dad will do anything needed. So we were able to do the best, and he won, and he won big. He won a really, it wasn't a knockout or anything, but in my opinion, it was extremely dominating. It was just dominating every single round. And it's cool to see. I don't work with anyone I don't like. I refuse to work with an athlete that I dislike. I've done it in the past, and I won't do it again. And Steven is just one of those guys that if you know him, you just want every possible good thing to always come to him, just because he wants that in everybody. I mean, it really is the truth. I think he feels sorry for every opponent he beats. Like I really do, because I really think he's able to look in his, it's me versus them, but in his heart and head, he realizes, well, that's a little bit less money they're able to go forth and give their family, and that's just how Steven is, man. He is really that guy too. There, it's not fake. It's not. I know a lot of people earlier on thought a lot of it might be a show and all this. I've known Steven for years. It's not a show. He's just one of the best humans on earth.
yeah, like he'll tag his opponent and be like, "Oh, are you good?" Like
Yeah,
help him up
yeah.
after he's, oh man, big respect to him,
Unreal.
always. And going back to you, like you have a kid, and what I
Mhm.
always was curious about was that if you're a doctor or a nutritionist, are you cognizant of every nutritional aspect taking place when you like whatever you feed your kid? Like, oh man, I can't put it in here in this kind of plastic, or can't feed him this. How awesome is that?
Yeah, but especially like with the principles that I teach, they work really well with the, like with the kid. And that is like I'm not restrictive with anything. I don't, obviously I don't have my fighters just eating whatever they want, but I try to teach like an overall wellness program. Whereas, like every now and then, if our kid, we have a baby and a 3-year-old, and if the 3-year-old knows that there's a difference between like this healthy piece of chicken and say candy, like if we make this great difference, like if you're a good boy, you'll get candy. Well, then you start to put things in his head that, well, candy must be extra good because I have to act extra good in order to get it. And you start planting these little seeds that lead to further, food issues later in life. And we've just never really done that. So we just encourage him to try new foods. So I mean, he's a kid, so he loves macaroni and cheese. I've never met a kid who doesn't. So it's like, say if we're having a meal, that's something new that I'm just not sure that he's going to like. I mean, the first time I tried giving him venison, um, I had killed a deer, and I was going to give him some venison. I just wasn't sure, because venison deer has a gamey taste. So I made sure, and I made him some macaroni and cheese. I made a very, a much healthier option than what you would just normally get. But so I made macaroni and cheese knowing that he would like it. And then I put a little bit of venison there too, and just encouraged him to try it. And, I wasn't going to make a big deal if he did or didn't. It is what it is. And he tried it and happened to love it. But the concept was, if he didn't, well, he's still going to get, some carbohydrates from the macaroni, some protein from the dairy and the cheese. So we just try to make like all around like a healthy plate. Like there's always healthy items, but there's always going to be an item that we know he will eat. We just don't really like make a discernible difference between bad food and good food, because we don't want to we don't want him to start putting a morality to food. Like kids start to think good food versus bad food. Well, if I eat this, does that make me bad? It's really weird that I see parents all the time. The food that we consider bad is the food that we bribe them with if they're good. So that's something that's never really, if you do this good thing, I'm going to give you this special food, but any other time this special food is actually bad. And it's a lot of confusion for a toddler. So it's been fun, but it's really not been as challenging as what people told me it would be.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, you're right. Like parents do reward bad food, right?
Yeah,
I never
that's
thought
why
about
it
it.
becomes later in life. Like that's how eating disorders happen and everything there. And the most important thing, me and his mom, I mean, we eat. Like we eat those things. We don't. we're never going to, he doesn't get a different meal than us. Like I said, he might have something different as part of his meal, but his meal is pretty much going to be the same thing that we're eating. And he's 3 years old. So what I tell parents all the time when they say, I can't, my kid only wants to eat junk food. And I'll ask them all, I'm like, well, Mike, who lets him drive? What do you mean who lets him drive? I'm like, well, if he only eats junk food and you're seriously concerned about this, then I assume he's buying his own groceries. Otherwise, I don't see what the problem is. The fact is, you're buying the kid groceries like you're buying him junk food. It's accessible. So yeah, he's going to take it. He's a kid. He wants, what tastes the best to him. So if it's accessible, he's going to get it. And we just don't really have those things accessible because we're not really eating them. He wants to do what we're doing.
Yeah, and also leading by example, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if a kid, he looks up to his parents. So if he sees his parents eating
So,
like crap, then he's gonna see, oh, okay, what's this? I want to eat like this too. So definitely leading
exactly.
by example. So I mean, man, you're all over social media, right? That's actually where I knew of you back when I'm like, man, Khabib made weight. So that's
Yeah.
I knew of you, right? And then I'm like, all right, I'll follow you on Instagram and everything. And you work with so many people. You not only do you have great before and after pictures for your clients, they're they're um they're attainable, right? Like there are a lot of
Mhm.
nutritionists or people that I follow. I'm like, man, in 2 months he's shredded. Like, come on. And that's just I lose all trust. But you do it the natural way, and I respect that. But in doing so, how much of yourself and your time do you give to your career?
It's my full-time thing. I mean, it's pretty much every day, off and on all day too. So it's you can't have a 9 to 5 when you do this because especially if you're working weight cuts, I might be here and I might have a guy that's over in Abu Dhabi cutting weight, and that's kind of the opposite schedule. And I can think back, one of my guys was fighting in Abu Dhabi, and I was up all night, right before she was about to give birth to our kid, like just the day before I was up all night because I had a fighter doing that, and I had to stay awake. So a lot, and the thing too is I'm in school. I also went back to school to just further my education. I'm constantly wanting to learn. Have a Bachelor of Science in nutrition, but I want to get a master's, and eventually I want to get a PhD. So I'm doing all of this while I'm also back in school learning more information. So it's difficult, but I just don't accept I don't accept anything but getting it done. And my girl is extremely supportive, and if it wasn't for that, there's no possible way.
Man, see, you love it, right? That's it. You
Yeah,
want to learn
yeah,
more,
I really
dedicate
do.
your whole life. Yeah. So what got you into this? Like what got you into nutrition? Was it back when you were a fighter or when you were a kid?
Both. I was an overweight kid and got picked on a lot, and I started wrestling, and that started helping. But with wrestling, you kind of learn. Uh, you learn nutrition, but you don't really learn right nutrition. You just learn to start being aware of what you're putting in your body, and that started. And I remember, I guess, in about 2004, I started doing, just a high schooler, started doing my own studying and stuff online, and learning a little bit about nutrition. And at that time, I didn't know where to look. A lot of people didn't. I just started learning, the importance of things like proteins and how carbohydrates work and such. So I remember I started like packing my lunches in high school, trying to do all these things to really change. And it was just interesting to me. And then I became, right out of high school, I started fighting. And I remember just using my own nutrition knowledge at that point. But my nutrition knowledge at that point was very much just based off of fitness, which, if you're reading magazines and books and things, most of that is geared towards bodybuilders and figure competitors and all these people. There was really not anything, at the time related to, like fighting and combat sports. Excuse me. So I was doing, I was doing what was right in terms of just eating healthy, but I was eating too clean. I was eating low carbohydrate. I was doing all these things. And I just started having some really hard times training and cutting weight and all these things. It didn't make sense because I was eating so healthy. And so then I had a health scare. So I started really studying more than just what I knew. I started studying like how hormones work in the body, and what causes you to retain water, the hormones that cause you to release water, hormones, the foods that work with the hormones to help you recover from workouts. I just started going down a rabbit hole for about a year, and just diving into it. And at that time, I was going to school I was doing like pre-chiropractic. And at that time, I just decided I really wanted to do nutrition. So I switched my degree to nutrition, and so I'm studying like a medical level nutrition on this end, and then I'm studying on the other. I'm studying my own stuff in my free time and trying to correlate the two and marry the two together for combat sports. And it just I started helping some friends. The first guys I started helping, other than like some guys, my own training partners, started helping Zach Cummings and James Krause. And after that, it just kind of blew up. I started helping more and more people. I remember Chris Weidman was my first big name, and Chris Weidman was my first big name. Daniel Cormier was my second. So after that, it just exploded.
Yeah, and that's what I hear from a lot of other nutritionists as well. It's the same thing, right? Where they go, okay, I like nutrition, and they fall down the rabbit hole that is very hard to recover from when you when you fall down that rabbit hole, because you see contradictions. It's like, is that a contradiction? Why does it go like that? But
Yes.
then when you think about it, in boxing, right, especially, it's such an old sport, and I still feel like most of the fighters have no clue what they're doing when it comes to nutrition. They'll cut weight and
So
drink
bad.
Coke and like what? And that's the
It's
thing.
so
It's
bad.
such a new field, right? It's such a new field, so it's a good investment too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know there's more boxers looking into it. I know I know there's more boxers trying to take it seriously. There's been boxers go to the UFC Performance Institute before. I know a friend of mine, Eric Trilogy, is working with several boxers. Well, he also works with the Paul brothers, if you want to consider them boxers or whatever you want to consider them. But it is they're believe it. I mean, those guys are taking the nutrition seriously. So it's people can say what they want about them, but I mean, those guys are literally doing everything they can to actually be good boxers. So whether you respect them or not, I really do respect like the effort they're putting in, and it's insane. I mean, these guys are training like world champion boxers. They really truthfully are. And he's working with them on a perfecting athletes, has some boxers and their thing. So there are boxers are breaking in and starting to look for to get a little bit better about that.
Yeah, yeah, that's funny, right? I saw this video yesterday. Mike Tyson's like said to his face, he's like, "Bro, Floyd is gonna destroy you." But it's respect. I mean, hey, why not get your money, right? Why not get your
Yeah.
money?
Again, I don't hate on them. I won't hate on them. It makes no sense. Like these guys are making millions of dollars. Do I understand it? No. Well, I mean, I kind of understand it. I mean, I see in my business, Instagram is it's almost my job. It's essentially it's a huge part of my job. I get more clients from Instagram, including fighters, than any other source. I have a website, but my website doesn't get nearly as many views as my Instagram or any of that stuff. So I mean, these guys just kind of recognize that. They recognize the power of social media and YouTube, and I mean, they'll never have to truly work again a day in their life. So I'm not going to hate them for that. We have very different personalities, and it's we're not the same kind of people by any means, just or from the who they let the world see. But I mean, I can completely respect them, and I think if you look at these guys like Connor's going to say what he wants about him, but I promise you, Conor McGregor respects them. I mean, just because he understands, like Connor's going to understand, like, hey, like I want to kill you, but at the same time, I can respect the hustle to be a millionaire. I mean, it's you can't hate on that.
Yeah, hey, I'll step in the ring with Floyd for $100 million. Like any day, if you
Oh
guys
yeah,
need me, I'm here. So
oh yeah. There's only a couple of guys that the money would have to be absolutely outrageous for me to get in the ring with, and Mike Tyson is still one of those. Mike
oh
Tyson's
yeah,
one, and I'm trying to think. I think now who
Errol Spence, man. He,
who's that?
Errol Spence, Errol Spence, he's a
Oh yeah,
beast.
yeah,
He's a
yeah,
beast. He hits. I just don't want to get hit to the body. Like, knock me out. That's okay. Hit me to the body and we have an issue because it's gonna be a long night.
yeah, yeah. I mean, some of those guys, it's unreal. But I mean, hey, if you're gonna get in the ring with Floyd Mayweather for money, okay, you're gonna earn it.
So, how much have you learned from your mistakes as a fighter in terms of nutrition? You know, because George Lockhart, he's like, man, I did everything wrong. I knew what I was doing because it was the opposite of what I used to do, right? So now,
Yeah,
yeah. So how much have you learned?
yeah, a lot. So I mean, I used to cut back in the early days when I fought in Tennessee and Kentucky. It wasn't technically, well, actually, it was illegal in Tennessee, but in Kentucky, it wasn't illegal. It was legal, but it wasn't regulated. So you would just come in, weigh in, show up. Some other dude would weigh in. If they weighed close to you, they would put you with this guy. We would wear pro gloves. I mean, I think you could like stomp to the face. It was pretty much pride rolls as amateurs, and it was same day weigh-ins. I remember my first amateur fight. I cut from 200 to 170 in 1 week. Weighed in and fought 4 hours later. And I remember Rob Mooney, the referee, raising my hand. I won in like 9 seconds. And he raised my hand and my knees buckled because I was so weak. I remember walking up the steps and thinking like, oh my gosh, my legs are so weak. I literally ate, I think I ate 3 or 4 pieces of fish a day, and then everything else was just handfuls of spinach for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. Quit drinking water 48 hours out, just absurd. But that's just, I was a wrestler, and wrestling, we knew what healthy foods were, but like with wrestlers, we even restrict those way too little, and we just didn't know what we were doing. So that was kind of that I learned the hard way several times with there. And again, there just weren't resources out there. There really weren't. And then I remember Mike Dolce came along, and early on, you didn't. Dolce's an interesting guy. He's a really good friend of mine, but he is early on, he would just put these little, he would just put these little fillers out. And I remember like talking about, you would see stories of these guys talking like, oh yeah, I had a Nutella sandwich. Like, what? Like he's telling these guys to eat a Nutella sandwich. Is like, and so like you would just put that stuff out. So you would go down a rabbit hole of looking up. And honestly, Dolce wasn't saying like, you couldn't find much about what Dolce was doing. And then he put out the was a 3 weeks to shredded book. And again, that wasn't a full insight to everything. But I remember I would just go to Books A Million and I would scan through the magazine section and I would look for Mike Dolce's name. I mean, that was the name at that time. I wasn't really looking for any specific fighter, though. There was not a single fighter that was going to make me spend my $8-9 on a magazine. I was cheap, especially at that time. I was really poor. But if Mike Dolce's name was on it, I was going to pay the money and buy that magazine. I actually remember a couple of times I went in and took a notepad with me and would write stuff from the magazine. I didn't actually have the money to buy the magazine itself. But I would just see like the little snippets of what he had, and then I would try to break them down. Like, well, why would he do that? Like, well, what's the concept? And then I would do that with what I was learning in school and what I could find on my own. And I tried to learn a little bit through Mike before I ever actually knew Mike. So I've been down a lot of avenues of learning this stuff. I've been doing this for so much longer than people realize too. There's not a whole lot of people in the field. I mean, it's not toot my own horn because there's more guys now than there were, but and there's ones with much higher education than me. But it's very rare to see guys in this field that have the practical application, like the experience, like I have, because I was a professional fighter and a wrestler for that, but also have a college education for this. You just don't see it. You got the UFC PI, obviously. Those guys have become really good friends of mine. You have Clint, you have Charles, and Reed, and all those people are. I mean, they're registered dietitians, and this is their life. They're always studying and doing that, and that's been a game changer for the UFC. And then you have Jordy Sullivan, the fight dietitian in Australia, a really, really close friend of mine. who's just a brilliant mind in this, and he's changed nutrition, weight cutting for the Australian athletes. I think he works with some American, but mostly just people over there. But I mean, he has hundreds. This guy's killing it overseas, and just doing such a good job. And then you have Dolce, who doesn't personally have that education that people have, but being who he is and being such a smart guy, he surrounded himself with these people, and he learned a lot of the stuff. So you have Dolce, who is training registered dietitians and stuff, like people who have, bachelor's and master's degrees and stuff. They're going to Dolce to learn how to apply what they know, which a lot of times is just a very, like medical based system, how to take that and actually apply that to fighters, because, as far as doing it, correctly, no one's been doing this longer than Mike Dolce. So, he's created a whole system there. So you're starting to see it kick up a little bit, and there's more people coming in that actually have more than just experience. They also have, an education, which is important. I have people constantly message me and like, yeah, I want to get into this. Is there anything I can do to start doing what you do? And I'm like, what's your, are you going to school for it? I can like put you in directions to learn about it. But if you don't have the university education, I'm not going to tell you to pursue it as a career. Number one, it's technically illegal. Some of the things you could be doing and saying could get you in a lot of trouble. And two, there's this weird thing that people tend to do, and they look at say like the government recommendations for nutrition, which are oftentimes not the best. We look at that and think it's weird. So they're like, well, like education doesn't matter, experience matters more. It's not true. The amount of science classes and things I've had to take that are applicable are not things I could have learned on my own. I couldn't have learned organic chemistry at that level on my own. Nutritional biochemistry, that's not something I was going to just learn through experience of working on myself and with fighters. So I do think it's extremely important to marry together the proper education with the experience. I don't want some doctor cutting into me or telling me what to do for a disease, and you come like, well, I have a lot of experience in this. I used to practice medicine on myself and all of my friends. Like, don't touch me. Like I want to know that he's had a little bit of it all.
Yeah, it's this funny you say that, right? Because I love Mike Dolce. Don't get me wrong, he's the coolest guy. But I was watching one of his I think it was a joint interview with Faraz Sahabi, and he's like so strict with his diet. Like he'll be like, man, if I stay in a hotel, I'm ordering wild caught fish. It's gonna be sent to the hotel room. I'm gonna get it. I'm like, man, somebody who's so dedicated like that, right? Like you have to expect good results. And what he says isn't outrageous either. Like he's like, I want a whole food diet, right? A lot of vegetables, a lot of plants, and you see his fighters perform. So that's all you can ask for.
Yeah.
Guys like that.
And that's him. I mean, it's that's not fake. That's really how he is. He's all about that life. And man, honestly, that there's been times that inspired me. I know a few years ago when I was first really getting a big name and starting to work with guys year round, and I was traveling all over the world. I was putting my own health. I was still eating healthy and stuff, but like I was skipping workouts and I was doing all these things just because I was so dedicated on trying to get all that done. And then I would see Dolce doing the same thing, but if he had to wake up at 3 or 4 a.m., he was going to get a workout in and this. And we became friends, and I was just kind of like, shoot, man, I can't let that happen. Like I can't let Mike Dolce outwork me. Yeah. And it wasn't a slight to him. That's one of something I've said for years. It's what I'll teach my boys, and I say, put it on my headstone when I die, is like my goal is to be the hardest worker in the room, but then surround myself with people who don't want to let that happen. Like they want to be the hardest worker in the room. That's how you do it. If I'm in a room full of losers, well, yeah, it's going to be very, very easy. But if I surround myself with people with that same attitude, I'm never going to feel like I'm never going to feel complete, because I'm constantly grinding. And Dolce is one of those guys. And, you'd ask James Krause, my best friend, that's my son's middle name is James, and that's after James Krause. That's another one. I next to Raina, my fiance, I probably talk to James more than anyone on earth. And that's it. Like he's just not going to. He's not going to let me slide. Like there's no excuse. James will call me out on excuses more than anyone. And I think this is just a good life lesson. So and he's just you got to have those friends. So I've been doing a lot of investing in stocks and Bitcoin and moving into real estate and things like that. And James, there was just something I was trying to figure out that I couldn't do. And I remember telling James, he asked me, he was like, "Hey, did you get that done?" I was like, "No, I couldn't figure it out." He goes, "Did you really try to figure it out?" He goes, if I told you, "Hey, here's $1 million, but you have to find this answer," he said, "would you accept the work that you just did, or would you have found the answer?" I'm like, "Oh, I would have found the answer." He was like, "Try harder." I'm like, "Okay." And that's the kind of friend James is. It's if he's not going to let you slack. He's going to make sure that he's going to make sure that you're either grinding as hard as he is, or he's going to pass you up and then outgrow you. So he's been honestly one of the biggest helps in my nutrition career as well. I was one of the ones originally who talked him into going up to 170, because I had seen like this guy's cuts to 155 they were just awful. And like I said, we formed a friendship, and he's just been marvelous for helping my business.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is, right? Surround yourself by smart people. You should strive to be the dumbest person in the room, because then you become a product of your own environment, right?
Oh yeah.
That's how you learn. Exactly. That's what it is.
Oh.
That's a life lesson right there.
Oh yeah.
So, and from what you learn, right, around these, high level nutritionists and everything, how do you implement that when you make, when you're constructing meal plans for your own fighters? Like, what are your rules when it comes to that?
Yeah. I guess like my rules, like how that, like my principles that I put in with those fighters, or
just just like how have they influenced how
yeah.
you construct a meal plan?
Yeah. Honestly, my education and honestly what I've learned, I wouldn't say that I've ever had any of those guys actually work with me on how to do that. Like even Dolce, I don't think me and Dolce have ever actually discussed specifically like how to do nutrition for a fighter or any of this, because one thing about it, and me and Jordy have talked about this. One thing about it, it seems that like almost everyone who's doing it right is doing it essentially the same way. Because the science is there, like the science is there, and it's always been there, and it's just kind of we all just kind of took the same paths, and we've learned the same principles. We all have a very a different way of portraying that. Mike, for instance, is a very like, "Hey, it's this way or get out." Like Mike is that's who he is, and I love him for it. But there's even times like I read his Instagram and I'm like, "Gosh, geez, dang man, like hope my mom ain't reading this or something," Yeah, Mike is a very, it's his way or get out. But man, that works. That works for people and works for his clientele. And again, that's who he is. But we all just kind of are recommending along the lines of the exact same stuff. We just have a different way of putting it out there. But what I think they've helped me with the most, and the guys that came before me, like Mike, is the business side of it, because that's something that's completely underestimated too. You get guys that get into this, and that's why I think the education is important. So you get guys that get into this because I love nutrition. Like I love nutrition. That's why I did this. And like that's really not enough. Like I owned a CrossFit gym for 10 years, and I sold it because honestly, it just got to the point I never loved CrossFit. Like from day one, I never loved CrossFit. It was fun. I think am I wearing, no, I was Reebok combat shirt. I thought it was a CrossFit shirt, but it's like, geez, but I never loved CrossFit. The problem is I never loved business. At that time, I didn't love the business of that either. So, I had a very successful gym. Made me, it made me really good money. It allowed me the freedom to pursue my career in nutrition. But I wasn't in love with that. So therefore I was in love with the business of that. So I got burned out and I sold it. And it was the best decision I've ever made in my life, because it allowed me to take this, which I'm truly 100% passionate about, but I'm also passionate about the business side of this. Like I can at any point, I'm going to be able to tell you things that, like how much money I brought in last week, or what I'm expecting next week, or who I have coming up. These things are, the data and all this stuff. It's just things that I keep up with, because I genuinely love the business side of this. And if you're trying to get into this, again, number one, you need to have the education, you need to have the passion, but you better be passionate about the business side of it, because I don't care how good you are, if you don't know how to, handle it as a business, you're not going to be in business very long. I won't steal a client. I've never once poached a client from anyone else that is in this profession, but I have worked with a lot of people who used to work with other people. And the main reason, I've had some of those people come out before and say things like, "Hey, you stole my client." I'm like, "Well, no, I didn't." Like they're like, they weren't happy. Number one, like, you never lose a happy client. It doesn't happen. Someone happy is going to stay. You lose someone who was unhappy because there's something you weren't providing them. And the one thing that I found that I've always, provided, and I wasn't always good about this, is something I've really worked with in the last several years, that a lot of early on my competition stuff was I was going to answer. Like, if you called, if you had a problem, I weren't leaving. I wasn't going to leave that in the inbox. I was going to answer your question. I was going to get right to it, because I was passionate about the people. I was passionate about the profession. So, that all that stuff's important. Like, you have to have a good business mind to be able to do this correctly. And that's the stuff that I've probably taken the most from those guys. Dolce, probably going on 2 years, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, we had a phone call, probably a couple of hours, and he pretty much just unloaded all of his business principles and everything that he felt would help me establish my business. And he just kind of presented it all out there to me. It kind of blew my mind. We were friends, but I didn't expect him to just kind of hand over all of that information. And that's been, worth its weight in gold.
Exactly. You keep up with the craft and the business, then you keep up with all the new things, excuse me, that are trending, right? For example, for like fasting, right? You see now some UFC fighters like, "Oh, I fast," or "Now I'm vegan." So when you see these new things come up, right? I'm not talking about vegan. I don't know about
No,
that, but I'm talking
I
about.
see it though. I see it.
Oh yeah, like Sean O'Malley, he was like, "Yeah, I used to be a vegan, but then I turned back." I'm about to get canceled right here, man. But no, I'm kidding. But if you see something like a guy like GSP talking about, "I eat a meal a day," or "I fast for this many days every month," what do you think about that?
It's hard to look at GSP first off and say, like, "Yeah, well, it's not working for him. It's obviously working something." Like, these things work for him. Was he doing these things when he was at his physical performance prime? I don't know. I'm actually not really familiar with how GSP ate back then, but I would imagine that if he was chasing pure performance right now, he wouldn't be doing those things. Like, fasting has a lot of benefits for like long-term health and longevity, but again, like that's kind of how I look at it. Like what's their goal, and does that support it? GSP looks really good. I mean, he's always been that guy, but his diet, I would imagine, when he actually was just focused on being the best in the world, looked much different. But I do, man. There's things you got to deal with, the religious side of things. I'm not going to work with a share of Muslim clients, and I know, especially during Ramadan, it's just I don't, my nutrition knowledge, my recommendations. I'm not going to try to tell, like, well, you really shouldn't fast. Like, it's I'm not going to argue. It's me or God. Like, you need to choose him. Don't choose what I'm saying. So I have to work with them with that, and that's been a challenge at times. That's very much been a challenge. I can't imagine being a fighter and trying to work around Ramadan. I've worked, some Muslim clients now. Like I have, I think, golly, who if I have any this year that were going on during, I think Yusuf was the one this year during Ramadan. We had to work with that and work around there. And Amir Al-Abazi, I work with him. And then, obviously Khabib. So with Khabib was my first Muslim client that was very strict about halal. And I was just honest with him. He was like, hey, so I was the first time I worked with Khabib, I was working with DC at the same time. And this was back right after Khabib had that really dangerous situation during the weight cut. And so then after he had that situation, they hired me to kind of come in and fix some things up. And I was there working with him and DC at the same time. And, I'm trying to feed DC one way, and then I got to feed Khabib the other way. And Khabib is very, very strict. Like, hey, this is, I'm going to bring you the food, or you can go to this grocer, but I want halal food. And I was very unfamiliar with it. So I let him educate me, kind of talk to me about what made food halal. And I remember I would be cooking DC's food sometimes at the same time. And he'd look over there. He's like, dude, don't let that stuff touch my food. Don't let that halal. He's like, don't let that halal chicken touch my chicken. It's just chicken, DC. Like, it's not. It's more of a religious difference, but it's not. He's like, dude, I don't. He's like, I don't know what halal means, but I don't want it touching my chicken. Like that was very. That was fun for me. It was very very interesting. I'm Christian, so a lot of people at this day and age are gonna like lead you to believe that we're supposed to be mortal enemies, and it's just I don't buy into that. And I had a blast working with Khabib because I took every chance I could to learn about Islam. I know this is a nutrition podcast, but I just think this is such a cool thing.
I'm Muslim too, so.
Okay. So, yeah, I wasn't aware. So I would ask him questions. I'm like, hey, as a Christian, this is what I believe, and this is what I've been taught that you believe. Now tell me tell me the difference, and tell me what's right and what's not. And Khabib knows. I mean, he's going to tell you what it is. He's going to tell you where it came from and everything. He's very devout, and that was really cool. He never once made me feel bad for being Christian. He never questioned any of that. He challenged, man. There was a lot of things. I said, like I believe this. What makes you believe this specific thing? And he would tell me, and I'd be sitting there like, oh my gosh, like this guy just made me feel bad without even meaning to. Just because like the level of devotion, his level of devotion to Islam, like the decisions that causes him to make as a Christian, even I was just kind of like, wow, I would not have made that choice based off my Christianity. So like man, it challenged me. So in a lot of ways, working with Khabib, it really did. Like, it made me a much better person. And I've told him, I was like, man, I know this sounds really, really weird, and maybe it does to you too as a Muslim, but it's true. I said, I'm working with Khabib made me a better Christian. It really did. It made me a better person. He's just such a different guy. He is, and it's I've told the story, and it's way out there now about the time I first rolled with Khabib, and I knew who Khabib was, but at that point, it was he wasn't who he is now. Obviously, he wasn't real famous. He really wasn't famous in America. I didn't know anything. All I knew was the Khabib that DC had told me about, and DC is the greatest storyteller on earth. like sometimes. I don't want to say they're always accurate and truthful, but no, DC is great at embellishing. He's great at spinning a story to be funny and all that. He's brilliant with that. And he's just going on and on about how good this Khabib guy is. And I'm like, dude, I'm sure he's good, but like, dude, you're acting like he's just Hercules. And I remember the first time I rolled with Khabib, and sure enough, my gosh, it was just didn't make any sense. And I can tell you one thing too. I know it might sound really weird to mention Conor and Khabib at the same time, but I had the most respect I've ever had for Conor as a fighter was watching him get up from Khabib on top of him once. Most people who were watching didn't really take anything from that. Anyone who's wrestled with Khabib or grappled with Khabib watched that and was like, "Wow, that was huge." But you knew what was going to happen, and Khabib would just do it again, and that's what he does. It's just it's unreal. But there's just so much with Khabib. But DC's done a really good job of like sharing these videos and everything, and showing his sense of humor and all this. And I always just kind of felt bad because he there towards the end, I feel like Khabib finally did start getting the level of fame and attention in America that he deserved. But I still feel that, and it could be religion, it could be the language barrier, it could be a lot of those things. But I don't think people in America, especially, ever fully appreciated like what we had in Khabib as an athlete. I do. Will they ever? I don't know. Like would I like to see as a fan? I want him to come back so bad it hurts. And I don't even care who he fights. Like bring him back, let him fight anyone. I just want to see him back. Him versus GSP sounds great. It's all that, but I don't care. Just bring him back. But as a person, as someone who knows, I know Khabib, and I've spent time with him, and like lived with him in areas. And when someone like Khabib says, like, "Hey, I'm retiring, I'm done because of this," he said, "I talked to my mom and all this." I'm inclined to believe that there's no possible way you're going to get that guy back, unless perhaps like that the dynamic there. I don't know, but maybe his they have a conversation. His mom becomes fine with it and things like that. But I'm telling you, that guy just doesn't. He sure as heck doesn't need money, but he don't even really want it. Like that's what's so weird. I've been, especially when I first started working, I was broke, but at that time, even like I've been next to Khabib, and I feel like what I'm wearing is probably more expensive than this millionaire, just because he doesn't care. Like he's one of those guys that the money's nice, but I can't even imagine. I would love to see where Khabib's money has gone. Like I would very much like venture to say the smallest percent has actually been spent on Khabib, and all that money's just gone to like help other people and gone other places. You just can't convince me that most of Khabib's money has been spent on Khabib Nurmagomedov. He's just not that kind of guy. But I do remember I had just bought this sweater, and it was at that point, it was right when I was working with him. I was working with DC. I was getting ready to go work with Max Holloway. It was honestly the most money I've ever made like at one time in my life. And I was like, man, I'm going to buy some nice clothes. And I went and bought this sweater that I just thought was really sharp looking. I thought it looked great. It actually had like an eagle on it, and it was like fitted. It fit really nice, and I was real happy to wear it to go up and check on Khabib. It was after weigh-ins and after he rehydrated, and I'm going up there and I'm wearing this thing, and it's him in DC, and I'm just pumped, like because DC would like to aggravate me about dressing how I would dress sometimes. I was always working out stuff or dressing like a kid from Tennessee. So I'm like, man, I'm really excited to like wear this real nice fancy outfit. And I go up there and I go in the room, and like the first thing DC was like, "What are you wearing?" And he's like, Tyler, he starts talking to me all this. And I remember Khabib, DC's just constantly on me, because that's just who DC is. He's always going to aggravate you. And I'm thinking, man, like Khabib's nice. He's not going to say anything. And Khabib just looks at me, he goes, "You buy this?" He's like, "You buy this, brother?" I was like, "Yeah, I just bought it." He goes, "You go get money back." like put his hand on my shoulder. He goes, bad choice. Like, dang, man. But I still have it. It's the picture. I have a picture of me and my nice sweater and Khabib and DC on each side. It was but I was looking for him to be my savior and take up for me, but it's like,
Nah.
bad choice. This is a good dude, man. He's just a good person.
And super inspirational, you know. It's interesting that I really don't think he's going to come back because as a Muslim myself, I know how important it is and how seriously we take, you know, if our mother says something, that's word, that's final word.
Mhm.
You know, you could try, and only if she says okay, like you can't go against her mother's word in anything in life, right? So the fact that he said, I made a promise to my mother, I was like, oh, so he's not coming back. Like his mother needs to say that, okay, you could go back for this one. And man, although I want to see him come back, I get so nervous during his fights. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
I need this dude to retire 29, 30 and 0. I can't let this dude lose, you know?
Yeah, it's just, I think a large part of it is anytime someone's undefeated, it's just every fight they win is almost like statistically meaning the next one they have a bigger chance of losing. Because
Yes.
like no one goes undefeated. So it's like after every, I'm the same way. Like after every fight, he would just become more and you know, like his record would grow. It's like, man, it's just the next one becomes trickier each time. And then you see a lot of times guys just get used to winning. They get addicted to the fame and it's the money. I mean, we've seen that. I mean, heck, the think back about the Rocky movies. That's what happened to Apollo Creed. You know, he started living the famous life, and you would just see that. And I think that's what we're used to. But the difference is Khabib wasn't that guy. Khabib wasn't going to train any less hard than you know when he was a little kid wrestling a bear. There were like none of that stuff changed Khabib. So that just didn't show. And I remember with Gaethje, who is just another very limited interaction with Gaethje, but from my interactions and every interaction I've ever heard of, he's a great dude too. But that I was really nervous for that fight just because everything that had gone on. I'm like, there's like I can't imagine the pain and stuff he's dealt with in training, and like it's had to have had an impact. And I predicted anytime it was asked, I think Khabib's going to win, but he's going to get tested. I was like, man, I really think we're going to see Khabib maybe lose a round or two. I said, I think we're going to like there's going to be close calls. No, like I'm unreal, blew my mind. Like I didn't expect that. And again, that's just kind of a testament to who I don't think that any of that stuff got his way. I don't think, if anything, it probably just made him work harder, work better. And honestly, the thing I hate most about that fight is I think it probably didn't give people a good idea of how good Justin Gaethje is. Gaethje's great. That's the thing. Like that, it isn't that Gaethje wasn't a worthy opponent. None of that. No, like that was just the best version of Khabib in there, and the best version of Khabib versus the another amazing fighter. And just saw what happened.
100%. Man, Gaethje's a beast, right? Gaethje's a beast. And people, I feel like people forget that, but they always do, right? Like even Conor got hate after the Khabib fights. Conor's still a beast, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And the craziest thing, I just found this out a couple of days ago, is that not only did, he had the broken foot going in, but he broke his toe again during the fight. Like
Yeah.
it hit part of the cage. I was like, and he hit a mounted triangle, which is so crazy. He probably didn't feel the broken toe because of the adrenaline, but at the same time, it's like, dude, taking leg kicks from Gaethje with a broken toe and a bad
Yeah.
camp is insane.
Yeah, it's unreal, man. It's there's that guy will always be seen as a legend. It's just he's just different too. It's just a different kind of. It's not even just because of his record. It's not because like some people. I guess it's arguable. It's hard to have an argument against this, but it's like he's either everyone's the best or one of the best. But there's just so much more than that. Like the way he did it, the way he beat people. Pretty much the only negative thing you hear from, I don't want to call them fans, but they're fans, is, well, if he was really that good, he would go up and do. Wow, like why would that prove that he's really the best if he would go like you pick a weight class and you dominate everyone in that weight class, like you don't have to go up to prove anything to me. And that's where that I've just never understood that, like that request of fans from any athlete, um, is to really be the best. Like, no, like I entered this sport at this weight class. Like I didn't enter this sport, to beat everyone. I've just never understood that. I don't think he had anything to prove by going up a weight class, or any of that. I think he would do fine if he went up a weight class, but I don't think that matters.
Yeah, and you being his nutritionist, at one, like when you were helping him cutting weight
Mhm.
or meal plans or whatever, what was he doing wrong, or what did you have to fix that he was doing wrong when he kept missing weight and having trouble?
Yeah, man, I'll be honest. And again, this was before I was with, so I mean, I can talk about any of it. The guy got played out a lot. It wasn't that he was undedicated. It truthfully, I don't want everybody wanted to talk about the tiramisu and all that. It wasn't that he was getting hurt all the time. And when you hear most fighters that miss weight, there's going to be some story about how they were hurt during camp and they couldn't train. And that was just Khabib a lot. He was always getting hurt, and he wasn't able to do the extra stuff to train. He was taking all this time off of training, and a lot of it was that. I mean, it really was. So I just kind of went in and looked at how I could feed him to let him get hurt less. My whole concept of working with Khabib wasn't like, hey, I need to change the way this guy's eating so he can make weight. I knew he had no issue making weight if he was healthy. So I just wanted to feed Khabib in a way that was going to keep him healthy and allow him to train as he does. And that was it. I fed him more carbs than he had been eating previously. And I fed him good. And that was the thing. I kept him really fed. I kept him really hydrated, supplemented with as many vitamins and minerals as we could, just to keep everything strong and healthy. And you see what happened. I mean, he went in there. He had a super easy weight cut. He was on weight the day before, still drinking water. I remember posting that, and it was really weird for me because I remember Ariel Helwani shared it, and Ariel's a friend of mine now, but at that time Ariel was just the gold standard of MMA reporting. Not that he's not now. I just mean at that time, was that's all I saw him as. And he retweeted. I'm like, wow, I've made it. Like Ariel
Yeah.
Helwani just retweeted my tweet. I'm the guy now. But no, and that was the thing. It's nothing that I did special. In my eyes, Khabib did the work. I just gave Khabib the tools he needed and to be able to do the work he was capable of doing.
I mean, well, regardless, when you became his nutritionist, he looked physically like a different athlete. Like he really did. He looked phenomenal. It was against Barbosa, right? Was that your first one?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my God. I saw that and I thought, what did I just see? Because, there was
yeah,
everybody's like, oh, Tyler Minton is nutritionist now. He got a nutritionist. And I was like, okay, well, this has to make a difference because of, compared to what he was doing before or whatever. And man, that was, I think, the most vicious beating I've ever seen anybody get, apart from maybe like
yeah.
Michael Johnson. And both of those are his opponents. So what you did really worked.
Yeah, and like we kept those even afterwards some issues and stuff, and I wasn't working with him in person and stuff, or working with him at the same level. I mean, it was just kind of he part of when I come in and work with a fighter, like I educate them. It's not a hey, I'm going to do these super secret things, so you always need me. Like you can't do this without me. That's lame. I don't want that. So like I educated him and made sure he knew like why we were doing these things and why this is important. So he was kind of able to just continue on and keep those same principles and just hold on to those and just continue it.
Yeah, and that shows what kind of a nutritionist you are. That's why I respect you. That's why I tried to get you on here. It was a little bit like like Khabib and Tony, us two trying to get this
My
podcast going, man.
goodness,
This,
everything.
that, I was like,
Travel. I was in Ireland at one point
yeah.
when we were trying to get it, and I had COVID at another time. Yeah, it was a mess. At one point, I told my fiance too. I was like, "Man, this guy, he's gonna think I'm avoiding him." At this point, like there's always something that comes up. So I'm excited to finally get it done.
But regardless, man, I really appreciate it. We're a little bit out of time, but it was truly a pleasure and an honor to speak to you because I learned so much, right? And I hope my viewers could learn, a lot as well from you. So thank you, man.
I appreciate it.